one official whole life order, and one 45-year minimum term that could well turn into a whole life order. Enjoy. The February 2024 murder of ex-prison officer Lenny Scott by repeat violent offender Elias Morgan was 4 years in the making. In the UK, we keep hearing about prison officers getting banged up themselves for things like bringing illicit substances into prisons and, even more notoriously, for shagging prison inmates. In March 2020, father of three Lenny Scott from Lancashire, North England, though, refused a £1,500 bribe from an inmate by the name of Elias Morgan at Altcourse prison in Liverpool, northwest England. The payment was to get Mr. Scott to keep quiet about the phone that he had found in Morgan's possession and which he, Mr. Scott, had duly confiscated. Picking up on my mention of prison officers getting locked up for having a sexual relationship with inmates, which is charged under the offence of misconduct in public office, or MIPO, Sarah Williams, a former prison officer at HMP Altcourse, is, as I record this, doing time for having had a sexual relationship with Elias Morgan, Morgan's phone having provided evidence of that. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. As you can now see, Morgan's attempt to silence Mr. Scott over the phone wasn't simply to avoid punishment for being in possession of a phone, because prisoners aren't allowed to have phones. The man knew how serious the consequences of the discovery of his sexual liaisons with Sarah Williams could be. In handing the phone over to investigators though, Mr. Scott was acting in accordance, of course, with his professional duty. Born in either 1989 or 1990, Morgan had once taken part in an £83,000 bank robbery in which staff were threatened with machetes. He also had convictions for theft, conspiracy to rob, drugs offences and for causing serious injury by dangerous driving. Having been released in 2022, when he executed Mr. Scott, as he did on the 8th of February 2024, he was 11 days away from his trial relating to his sexual interactions with a prison officer. Morgan perpetrated Mr. Scott's execution, moreover, exactly as he had threatened to, the man having told Mr. Scott that for passing the phone on to investigators, he would kill him, but that he would bide his time. These threats having been accompanied with a gun gesture of his. He did a two-finger pointing thing, the way that kids do. At the time of the shooting, Mr. Scott himself, who was then aged 33, was no longer working as a prison officer. In response to an incident from 2021, you see, which involved the restraint of another prisoner, he was sacked, and sorry, but I couldn't trace any further details to the matter. Now, whatever that might make us think of Mr. Scott, can we please keep in mind that he was innocent and that Morgan had no right to do what he did to him. So, on the 8th of February 2024, 4 whole years after he first threatened to kill Mr. Scott, which was in line with his intention to wait a while before getting his own back on Mr. Scott by murdering him, Morgan waited for 53 minutes outside the gym on Peel Road in Skelmersdale for Mr. Scott to leave his jiu-jitsu practice. At 7:35 p.m, the moment when Mr. Scott duly emerged from the gym, Morgan, who for reasons that I'm about to share was wearing a high-vis orange jacket, walked up to him, pointed his self-loading handgun at him and shot him all of 6 times at close range. Mr. Scott dropped dead. Morgan, meanwhile, promptly took flight in a van that had been left nearby the previous evening by his close friend Anthony Clary, aged 29. Anthony's story is coming up. The preparation that Morgan did both for the murder and for the subsequent cover-up revealed the extent of the man's careful planning and premeditation. The preparation included the discovery of Mr. Scott's movement. The man literally stalked Mr. Scott, where Mr. Scott lived with his partner and his 3 very young children, the gym that he used in Skelmersdale, plus a recce drive by Morgan to the said places a month before the shooting.
Hello, may I start, please? I'm an officer at HMP Altcourse. I've been informed that there's been a car set outside my house all weekend by a prisoner, and I believe it's there at the moment.
Is there anyone at home who can confirm it?
Confirm which? Sorry.
That the car's outside.
Well, they're not aware, because I don't really want to alarm them, because
You're going to have to get someone to look out to see if there's a car.
Okay. Well, they're not going to sit directly outside it, because it's a prisoner threatening my family.
Right. Okay. So what's your name, please?
Lenny Scott.
Is that Lenny Scott?
Yeah.
Lenny, what's your date of birth, love?
15th to the 10th, 1990.
And who's made the threat?
Elias Morgan. He's described my family and me to a T. Described my house. He said he's had them there, just ready for because it's over. I've nicked them for a phone.
Ah, right.
And
okay.
he's until I drop that, he said to stay in there, and they're just going to constantly be around my house and.
Right. Okay.
Just in fear for my family's life. That's all.
Okay. And has he described the vehicle at all?
No, he hasn't. He said he's got lads everywhere, so he says he's described my vehicle and he's described my house and what my girlfriend and twin boys look like.
Is there any way that he's excuse my French, but is he chatting over this?
No, I believe this is real. Yeah, it's too specific because my twins, they're twins, but they've got different colour hair.
Yeah. So
it's just a bit. He's got everything to a T. He knows. He's described me everything. Yeah, an iPhone he had. So, and he reckons it's going to incriminate him. So that's why he's going to these lengths.
Right. When was this?
That was Friday. He said he's had people sat outside all weekend.
Has anyone reported anything to you, like your family, or have you noticed anyone?
Recently a couple over the road, I believe they're dealing anyway,
right.
Has moved in, so I've just assumed any car that was there or hovering was to do with them.
So he's described your house, yeah?
Yeah, my vehicle.
Are your family at home at the moment?
Yeah. I don't know what's best, whether to tell her or... Sorry if you think I'm wasting time.
No, you're really not.
Yeah.
So at home is it your partner or your wife?
Wife. No, partner.
What's her name, please?
Lucy Griffiths.
And kids, the twins? Is it just the twins?
Yeah.
And is this your mobile? No, it's not.
I've rang from the jail, sorry.
Do you know what? I'd be tempted just to carry on so they don't see you going home. Is there any chance you can then get your girlfriend to meet with you? Does she drive?
She doesn't drive, no.
She doesn't drive? All right.
No.
In that case, you would have to go home, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not. Personally, it's not. I can deal with whatever. I'm fine with that. It's them.
Is he from Merseyside?
Yeah, I think speak.
As soon as the next available car will get deployed, we'll ask them to ring you rather than have a patrol and go to your house.
Yeah.
Because obviously we don't know you're going to play it with your missus, and also we don't want to alert them. Right, you've contacted us. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, love. It's log 217, like I said. If you just try and bear with us on that, and we'll get the next available patrol to make contact with yourself.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Bye, love.
Morgan also obtained an e-bike, which was carried in the van that his friend Anthony, as I just mentioned, dropped off for him in Daybrook the night before the shooting. Daybrook is just a few minutes away from the gym in Peel Road, where Mr. Scott was gunned down. Morgan used another vehicle to travel from Liverpool to Skelmersdale. It was a Mercedes GLC which was registered to his mother. He got to Skelmersdale around an hour before the shooting, because remember I said he waited for Mr. Scott for 53 minutes. However, he parked a short distance away from the gym in order, of course, to avoid suspicion. The e-bike, meanwhile, was used by Morgan to travel quietly to and from the scene in a rehearsal of the route for the shooting. Morgan wore the said high-vis orange jacket so that after the shooting he could remove it and make it harder for him to be identified as the shooter. The van, the bike and the gun had never to this day been recovered, Morgan having disposed of those things with utmost efficiency. So how did Morgan get caught then? A few days after murdering Mr. Scott, he returned to Skelmersdale and changed the number plate of the Mercedes that he had used to get to the town on the night of the murder, and then he moved the vehicle to another location. He subsequently repeated those two steps twice more in an effort, as is obvious I'd say, to throw police off the scent of the car. The perpetrator even went to the extent of removing the SOS unit from the car, sorry but I don't know what that is, fearing as he did that its manufacturer's SIM card might provide data of the vehicle's movement. Unluckily for Morgan, however, he didn't know that there was another manufacturer's SIM card which provided the telematics data that the police needed, and that's how the man got caught. When he was subsequently arrested, Morgan went no comment in each of his police interviews.
These officers will speak to you and explain to us. Yeah. Everything's on camera, it's just...
Right, Elias.
That really 1 second. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to open that room for us?
Sorry, can I use the shoe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on, spill your rating for us.
Yeah. Elias, it's 11 o'clock, mate. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder, right? Yeah. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention. On question, something which you later violate in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand? No reply? Alright, reason for that, mate. Prompt and effective investigation, mate. Alright, so we can interview you over the matter. Alright? Just that way for us? You got bills on underneath me, yeah?
No, don't wear bills then.
You haven't?
No.
What have you got here?
Money.
How much is that?
No more than 250. 290. 290.
Can you go around your waistband, mate? Right? Spin around for us. And again.
As for his friend Anthony, after initially being charged with Mr. Scott's murder alongside Morgan, Anthony was cleared of that charge in court after convincing the jury that he had no knowledge that the e-bike and the van that he had been in charge of were being used in a murder. He also betrayed Morgan with his courtroom testimony that, rather than having been, quote, seeing a man about a dog, unquote, in Liverpool at the time of the shooting, as Morgan had claimed, the perpetrator had called him that night to say that he had, quote, done someone in Skem, unquote, and that Anthony should get rid of his phone. Lenny Scott is sorely missed, not just by his 3 little kids, but also by many others.
The murder of the deceased has caused profound grief to the deceased's family, his young children, and to all who knew him. He was 33 years old with much of his life ahead of him. He was loved, respected, and made his family proud. The attempts by you during the trial to blacken his character have been rejected by the jury. In the victim's personal statements, this court has heard the very moving statements from his mother, Paula Scott, his father, Neil Scott, and his former partners, Lucy Carnhill and Lucy Griffiths, the mother of his children, who must all bear their suffering for the rest of their lives.
On the 2nd of September 2025 at Preston Crown Court, Morgan got life with a minimum term of, wait for it, 45 years. This is way longer than the typical sentence for murder here in the UK, and with good reason.
In addition to the very significant degree of planning, is that this was a revenge killing of the deceased for what he did lawfully as part of his duty as a serving prison officer. There is an important public interest in making the killing of prison and police officers in the course of their duty exceptionally serious. This is expressly reflected within Schedule 21 of the Sentencing Act 2020. Whilst the deceased was not acting in the course of his duty when he was murdered, because he was no longer a prison officer, the killing was carried out because of what he lawfully did when he was acting in the course of his duty. It was revenge threatened by you when the deceased was a prison officer. The public interest in making the murder of former prison and police officers for their lawful actions while serving officers must require, in my judgment, sentencing on the basis that it is of particular seriousness to a very high degree.
Taking away the 15 months that he'd already served on remand before his murder trial, Morgan will be around 79 before he becomes eligible to apply for parole. Direece Roche is exactly why, one might argue, a murderer should always be given a forever prison sentence, otherwise known as a whole life order. After getting out of prison for committing one murder, you see, the man went and committed another murder. Roche committed his first murder when he was 16. He and his brother Owen went round to the home of Adam Steele in Salford in Manchester, northwest England. The occasion was New Year's Day. They went round to try to find Owen's girlfriend. There'd been some struggles and tensions between Owen and his girlfriend, and when the brothers turned up to Adam Steele's flat, they demanded to know where the girl or woman was at. That caused an argument that erupted into the street, and Direece Roche, for whatever reason, got out a knife and stabbed Adam Steele to death with it. For that murder, Roche got a life sentence with a minimum of 12 years. His brother, meanwhile, got an indeterminate sentence for manslaughter. 8 years after Roche was sent down, his legal team tried to get him out early. They said he was a reformed character, he had an excellent prison record, and he had raised money for charity, he had cut ties with all his criminal friends, and he was planning on enrolling for a psychology degree. There's no doubt that the judges were very impressed with the progress that Roche had made in prison, but they ultimately refused him early release because they just weren't convinced that he was fully reformed, fully rehabilitated. And we can see now that their scepticism was fully justified. For instance, on day release from HMP Kirkham in Lancashire in May 2023, Roche was found with a lock knife in his bag. He denied knowing anything about it, but in any case, he was released from prison that same year, September 2023. So off Roche went out of prison. Freedom was his again, although he is on licence, or rather was on licence forever, because when you get a life sentence, which you always get for murder, you do whatever your minimum term is, and then when you get out, you're on licence for the rest of your life, which means that you have to live by a strict set of rules, and if you break any of those rules, you can be sent back to prison for any length of time. Knowing that he had his licence hanging over him for the rest of his life, 9 months later, Roche went and murdered his great uncle, Fintan McDwyer. A father and a grandfather, Fintan McDwyer was 64. He lost his wife back in 2005. By the time of his murder, he was retired, and one of his favourite hobbies was taking his beloved dog Sammy for daily walks in his local park. When Direece Roche was little, he knew his great uncle. They would see each other regularly enough, but as Roche got older, his uncle, for whatever reason, fell out of his life. And another important point about Roche is that 3 years before he murdered Adam Steele, which, sorry for not saying this earlier, he did in 2011, he lost his mother. Her name was Samantha Toohey, and she committed suicide in 2008. In the note that she left behind, she said that when she was little, she was essayed by one of her uncles. Fintan McDwyer was one of her uncles, but the fact is, Samantha had 12 other uncles, and she didn't say which one it was, if it was any. Sorry, maybe she was essayed, maybe she wasn't. I personally don't know. So there was no evidence that it was Fintan McDwyer, and after Fintan's murder, the police looked into whether it could have been him, and they couldn't find any evidence to say that it was. So now we're all probably wondering, did Roche believe that that particular great uncle of his, Fintan McDwyer, was the one who had essayed his mother? And if so, was that why he decided to kill his great uncle? Just before killing his great uncle, Roche actually went to visit his mother's grave. She is buried in Southern Cemetery in Chorlton, and then, just a few hours after murdering his great uncle, he went back to her grave again. On the day that Roche murdered his great uncle Fintan was home alone, except for his dog Sammy. His son Ryan, you see, had gone away to a wedding with his girlfriend. Late at night on the 29th of June 2024, Roche put on a balaclava and other dark clothing. He left his home in Longside and went on foot to the home of his great uncle. He went through people's gardens, and when he got to his great uncle's home, he tried to open a ground floor window to get in. He wasn't able to do so, but then he found a ladder in a nearby garden and he used it to climb up to his uncle's bedroom window, and he got in that way. And then in a matter of about 90 seconds, he stabbed his great uncle to death, and he stabbed him 77 times. Fintan's body was only discovered 2 days later when his son Ryan came home. Police arrested Roche in his home on the 6th of July. It was easy for them to find him because they found DNA on objects that were left near the home of Fintan McDwyer, including some blood that was smeared on a fence, because remember, he'd got into his great uncle's home by climbing through gardens of neighbouring houses. And remember, because Roche is a convicted murderer with a criminal record, his DNA was in the police database. In his police interviews, he told them that he himself, as a child, had been essayed by his great uncle Fintan McDwyer. It turns out, though, that that was the first time he had ever mentioned the matter to anybody, and he said that the reason for that was because beforehand he was too scared to talk about it. Roche also claimed that his great uncle had told him that his dog Sammy was named after his mother, Samantha Toohey. He said that that link disturbed him and that he decided that he had to steal the dog. Somehow that would stop the idea of the dog being named after his mother disturbing him. And we're all thinking, oh, you went to steal a dog, so you took a great big knife with you. Don't know how big the knife is, but you get the point. But the thing is, Roche denied that he actually owned the knife. He denied he'd carried it with him. He said rather that the knife was his great uncle's and that he had had to wrestle it away from his great uncle. That obviously implies that his great uncle was the one who attacked him. Funnily enough, the court didn't quite believe him, especially considering that Roche had stabbed his uncle 77 times. That is not self-defence. That's a furious, frenzied, ferocious act of murder. On the 19th of September 2025, he was told that he would spend the rest of his life in prison because he was given a whole life order. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.